Hey, this is Rick Kaselj from exercisesforinjuries.com. Today I have another interview for you, and it's with someone that I've interviewed before. It's Tyler Bramlett, and I'll get Tyler to introduce himself if you don't know who Tyler is.
So first, Rick, you almost stopped my heart with that intro, man. You know, that was an enthusiastic, hey! Yeah. So, hey, I'm Tyler Bramlett, and I run a website called garagewarrior.com where we're dedicated to helping people look, feel, and perform their best using functional movement and progressions. And, yeah, I mean, that's it. That's who I am, man.
That's it. That's the only intro that you're gonna give me.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So
you don't have your 60-second hook.
No, we just, yeah, I am who I am. You love me or you hate me. That's how it kind of is, right? Yeah, we teach people like functional movement progressions that help people basically cause adaptations in their body that transform it, you know, and we focus on simple lifestyle tips. You know, a lot of people have more complex stuff. I like to break things down into the most simple things. And we have several products around our progressive movement philosophy and of course, lifestyle habits and so on and so forth. So
awesome. Now, we were going to kind of talk about body weight exercises. A lot of people just think of body weight exercises in, you know, isolation or as just a strengthening exercise.
Right.
And you kind of approach bodyweight exercise in a different way. Maybe you can kind of expand on that. How
totally
you kind of approach bodyweight exercises in a different way.
Yeah, I think I may have said this on the call before in the past, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I approach fitness in general as you're either doing one of two things, right? You're either learning how to move stuff outside your body better, or you're learning how to move your body better, right? Those are really only the two things that you can do. You can either learn how to move your body better or move stuff outside your body better. So obviously the first example is like weightlifting, kettlebells, dumbbells, whatnot. You're trying to learn how to control an external object. With bodyweight training, though, people think about it as like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to do bodyweight training. I'm going to learn how to move my body better. And then they limit themselves to simplicity, like squats or pull-ups or push-ups or kind of base burpees, whatever, sit-ups, things like that. And they're like, yeah, I'm doing bodyweight training. They don't understand that the most important component of bodyweight training is movement sophistication. So sophisticating or making the movement more complex, right? And when you sophisticate movement patterns or you string movement patterns together and make them more complex in general, you're actually strengthening not just your muscles, your bones, your tendons, and your ligaments, but you're actually strengthening your neuromuscular control at the same time. So it benefits you in numerous different ways inside the gym and outside the gym as well. So I always urge people when they're thinking about bodyweight training, forget about like super crazy, gnarly high rep. I'm going to do 1,000 squats. I mean, if you want to do that for mental toughness, then, you know, by all means have fun at it. But my approach is really more, how can I increase the challenge of the exercise without it being ridiculous? Like, I don't want people to stand on a Swiss ball and do a squat with a cable overhead and stuff like that. There's no instance in real life where you'll need that skill. But being able to do a squat on one leg, being able to move your body functionally in between positions, if you're older, one of the things we see disappear really fast is just simply being able to go from lying down to standing up. And that's a functional movement structure, believe it or not. Being able to sit up or to roll over, to push up, to come up to one leg, to stand up from a lunge position. Those are functional movements that people lose over time. And I think that more people should train sequences and patterns with their body weight from an angle of complexity rather than just like, you know, 1,000 squats and 1,000 push-ups kind of thing.
Okay, then let's kind of expand on the sequences and patterns. So then what do you mean by, you know, people will think body weight stuff if they can't get to the gym, or they'll do a quick workout and they'll just think of like doing a bunch of squats and doing a bunch of push-ups.
Right.
What do you mean by sequencing the body weight exercises or patterning the body weight exercises?
Sure. Let me tell you, let me share a story to give you kind of the benefit of this, right? So I had a woman who was training with me for a long time, and I had just started using some of these kind of bodyweight sequences on another client of mine, and I was seeing really amazing results. And I'll share with you kind of a pilot study we did here in a second. But with this woman, she was to the point where if I said stand on one foot, just lift your leg and stand on one foot, she'd instantly topple over, right? She had no balance, no coordination, right? So Yeah, we could do squats, we could do kneeling push-ups, stuff like that, but is that really going to benefit this woman, right? She needed more than that. She needed the coordination, right? And so what we did was we started working her on single leg positions. So first, we did a simple progression of just learning how to stand on one foot, using a chair for support, slowly getting to the point where she just had one finger on the chair, lifting the one finger, learning how to balance on that one foot. So this is just a static position, but as you can see, there's a progression, and the progression is balance without external help, right? And then from there, what do we do? So we start moving her from a single leg position to maybe a hip hinge single leg position and back. So you could call it like a one-legged deadlift or a one-legged good morning, where we're trying to make sure that everything is in alignment with her foot. And so then as we sophisticate that movement more and more, let's say we go from the bottom of a one-legged deadlift and we come around the side. So we're doing a side bend with the leg out all the way to the front into a front position where your leg's sticking out right in front of you. And then we can sophisticate that position even more, right? And so what you're doing is you're training not just your muscles, like I said, you're training that neuromuscular coordination, the ability for you to use your body the way it should be used, right? And in doing so, you fire more muscles, you increase the amount of calories you can burn during your workouts, and everything's significantly safer at the same time, which I know is something that you like to talk about a lot.
I mean, it ends up being the number one reason why people get hurt in the gym or
Right.
working out is like garbage technique.
It is, yeah, and it's garbage technique. Sometimes the problem, Rick, though, is people will try to fix a squat just by cueing the squat with their words, right? And what I find works the best is the proprioceptive awareness, right? So if somebody's knees are wobbling in and you're like, push your knees out, 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 and it's not working, well, then that's your job as a trainer to step in and give them a cue that allows them to facilitate your goal. So maybe push in on their knee and they'll push back out. And this is a very simple example of what I like to kind of teach people. But as you get more sophisticated with body weight sequences, people then can learn how to fire muscles properly, move from position to position without as many like proprioceptive hands-on cues, and that benefits them big time in the long run. Because ultimately, you can't hold people's knees together on a squat forever, right? You want it to like eventually look good, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that you kind of highlighted, and we kind of talked about before we got on the call, was, I mean, the benefit when it relates to the body weight sequencing is how it ends up improving flexibility, through different joints in the body. Maybe you can kind of, explain that and highlight that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a super tight client a while back, and he couldn't do anything, like push-ups where he comes down and his scapula sticks out and his shoulder internally rotates, and so he couldn't go down in that movement. His squat was all terrible, his knees are knocking into each other and so on and so forth. And I was scratching my head like, how the hell do we get this guy more flexible so that he can go through a full range of motion? And so we started using frequent sequences, because I tried flexibility with them and everything, and like, hey, you should stretch like this for 30 minutes a day. But the reality is, Rick, I mean, stretching is not sexy, right? What amount of clients are you going to send home and they're going to work on their groin flexibility for 30 minutes a day, right? It's just not going to happen.
So we got to get a shirt. Stretching is not sexy.
Stretching is not sexy. Do this instead. Yeah. So instead of forcing him to stretch on his own, we started implementing small movement patterns into his workouts in between exercises to give his body that constant signal that he needs to be more flexible. So at least that I knew I was contributing to his flexibility. And what was really interesting is that over time, he got significantly more flexible, was able to squat down ass to grass. And the beautiful part about this is it was an unintended consequence, but his transformation happened significantly faster. So he started burning fat faster, building muscle faster, and it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks that, if somebody can only squat halfway down, let's say with maybe 60% of their muscles working properly, then they're really not going to get the results as someone who can squat with good form all the way through a full range of motion are. So let's say person A is got terrible form, and they can only squat halfway down, and person B has perfect form and they can squat all the way down. They can both do 10 reps, but person A is going to get half the results as person B, right? In the same exact amount of time with the same exact amount of reps on the same exact exercise, right? And so if you're like, that's why we try to talk to people about, hey, if you're doing a workout and you're not seeing the results you want, it may not be the workout. It may be your ability to perform each exercise functionally and through a full range of motion, and then also being able to contract the muscles that are associated with exercise and coordinate the full body to work as a unit at the same time. So that's what we found, and it was pretty awesome to see that you can improve flexibility just in a couple minutes in between sets of workouts, or even just like first thing in the morning. And that consistent signal is what improves their flexibility over time, which improves their range of motion, which ultimately we found out burns up to 53% more calories during a workout session.
Yeah, and I'll get back. I'll kind of ask you about the calorie burning thing, but expanding a little bit more on the flexibility side of things. I think a lot of people don't realize that when you strengthen an area or improve the stability in an area in a joint,
right,
a lot of times stability will end up leading to greater flexibility or greater range of motion.
Sure.
And a lot of people kind of think if I just stretch it out and try to stretch out the muscle, that'll help, but you end up getting an acute effect, acute benefit from the stretch, but then you go back, the body ends up going back to the way it was.
Exactly. And that's a really great point that you bring up, because if you that's why we focus on dynamic mobility or dynamic flexibility rather than just passive flexibility. And the difference is quite simple. Like, you can just drop your legs into a split and let the gravity just stretch the crap out of your groin, right? Or you could actively pull yourself into a squat, do some rotation side to side, and that'll be actively stretching your groin muscles, so that when you drop into a squat, you don't just have flexibility with no strength or coordination. You should have flexibility with both strength and coordination at the same time. And if you look at professional athletes, like I have a guy I work with a couple days a week who's a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's told me about one of the best fighters he's ever met. The advantage that fighter had was it's just an insane amount of dynamic flexibility. So his ability was he could take his foot and he could just lift it up to his head and push you away with his foot, because he was so flexible, but he was also extremely strong within that flexible position. And I'm sure if you look around at the greatest athletes in the world, they all kind of have the same attribute, where they're not just nimble and strong and coordinated, but they're freaking flexible and strong at the same time. It's pretty wild.
And I really like reviewing your sequencing. And it kind of goes with what you talk about. Well, we haven't talked about it, but the pairing of exercises and how you end up pairing exercises and you end up moving from one exercise and flowing into the next exercise.
Right.
And maybe kind of explain the benefit of that.
Totally. Yeah, so what we looked at when we started doing this stuff was what areas is this improving, and how is that improving the overall results somebody's getting, right? And so we talked about flexibility and range of motion. Obviously, if you can build flexibility and range of motion, go through a full range of motion, you're going to get better results in your workouts, you're going to be safer, and so on and so forth. The second thing is intramuscular coordination, okay? And what that means is, how hard can I fire my bicep with my brain, right? And what's interesting is when you look into the research, most people can fire about 10-15% of their available muscle fibers. Think about that. 10 to 15% of your muscle is available to you. Athletes, 30 to 50% of their muscle is available to them, which is why you can see people who maybe are muscular and they look great, but there's no reason why that person should be maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 times as strong as you, right? They only have 20 pounds more muscle. Why are they 5 times stronger than you are? Well, it's because they have an increase in their ability to contract their actual muscle fibers. So we find that positions or holds where you're able to focus on firing a muscle in a position for a brief period of time is what increases that intramuscular contraction. And then what facilitates turning this into better results during your workouts is what's called intermuscular coordination. And so a simple way to think about intermuscular coordination is, how do you coordinate the use of your biceps, your chest, your lat, your abs to do a pull-up? Right? You have to learn how to use all those muscles at the same time. And believe it or not, I don't know if you've tested this, Rick, but I have. I've tested people where they'll do like a one-arm press. So they'll hold a dumbbell and they'll press it overhead. And we know all the muscles this should be activating. And then you'll sit there and you'll jiggle their pec. You'll just jiggle their pec muscle while they're pressing overhead, and it's not doing a damn thing. And yet that's a huge component of the stabilizer of your shoulder while you're doing a press. So people can think, oh, I can do a press with X amount of weight. Well, if you're not firing all your muscles, you're not getting the results you should be getting out of every single exercise that you're doing. So that I'm getting confused with intermuscular coordination is super important. How you train that is by going from position, mindful position, to mindful position, right? And so what we created were these flow-like sequences where, an example would be maybe you squat down, maybe you extend your hips up, then you walk your hands out to a push-up position, and then you roll over into a back bridge position or a tabletop position, roll back, come up, and repeat. Kind of like you would think of as a kind of a sun salutation a lot of people do in yoga, mixed with some sort of Pilates and a little bit of like PT-style therapy stuff. And what we find is that this facilitates all three of those things. You increase your flexibility, you increase your muscular contraction, and you increase your coordination all at the same time. And you can do it pretty quickly, 2 to 3 minutes during your rest period. It's not going to affect your sets. And what we actually found is it actually really, really benefited the body transformation and your workout significantly too.
Okay. And then